So just give me a sec. Rahim, do you want to put your share your screen and we'll get set ready to go? Put your share your screen and we'll get set ready to go. Okay, welcome everybody. It's very nice to see you all here. So we are live on YouTube and on Zoom. And I'm very, very excited to have Rahim with us today. Now, I've got to admit, I have known Rahim for a while. We've been connected on social media for ages. And it wasn't until I saw him presenting at Celia's Meetup recently, and it was such a fantastic presentation, I said to Celia, do you mind if I steal him? And he's giving a very similar presentation to the one that he gave the other day. So thank you so much, Celia, for letting us have Rahim. And thank you so much for agreeing to doing this again, Rahim. So Rahim is the founder and CEO of Excel Basement. He's joining us from his home in Karachi. He's a Microsoft Office specialist and he's also a Microsoft certified trainer. So how's lockdown going there, Rahim?
Yeah, the lockdown has provided us the new opportunities to explore. And now in Pakistan, it's being a partial lockdown. So most of the businesses are now open and slowly we are coming to the normal routine.
Yeah, it's a bit like that here in Sydney in Australia as well. We're sort of still partially locked down. And so we still can't sort of get out there and attend any training. So we are continuing to run these sessions. So I will pass over to you, Rahim. So I'm just going to have a look at some of the comments. So we've got people from all over. We've got people from New Zealand, Bangladesh, UK, Melbourne, Nigeria, all over the place. KL, Sydney. Okay. All right. I'll pass over to you, Rahim.
Oh, thank you so much, Daniel. So hello, everyone. This is Rahim Zulfiqar Ali from Excel Basement. I would like to thank for generosity and invitation from Daniel. And I would like to present predictive analytics in Microsoft Excel in today's webinar. And I hope that the attendees would be enjoying the session and learning new things regarding the forecasting and regression and how to do predictive analytics in Excel. So let's get started. As Daniel have already introduced about me, and I'm the founder and CEO of Excel Basement Private Limited. I have few achievements. I'm living in Karachi, Pakistan, and it's a pleasure to be on the international forum. And let's get started. So first, I would like to share the webinar agenda. So we will be discussing about the introduction of forecasting. Then we will move towards the industry examples. Then we will see the demonstration within Microsoft Excel that how we can perform forecasting and apply the forecasting functions. And guess what? We have a poll for you as well. So we will see that how many can give you the right answer for that. And then I will share the learning resources with you. Then I will move towards the regression part and their demonstration. And I would like to have your question and answer and would love to give you a response on that. For prerequisite for the webinar is that I hope that most of the attendees might have the basics and the understandings of statistics and in their routine life, and when they create especially the financial models and other MIS reports, they put into the statistics into their practical application. So I hope that they understand some of the logics as well. So let's get started how we can do the predictive.
Yeah, thank you, Rahim. I just wanted to mention on the agenda was that we are going to stop for a short prayer time at 12:30 local.
Exactly, yeah. So moving ahead, let's see that how we can do predictive analytics in Microsoft Excel. And I have used forecasting and the linear regression especially. Regression itself is a very broad topic, and there are many different kinds of regression we can do on data set, depending on the prediction we are required to do. But for this specific webinar, I have chosen the linear regression to tell the Excel users that how we gonna apply. So starting with the very basic definition, so that everyone should be on one page. What is forecasting? And generally, forecasting means we predict some numbers, either financial or non-financial. It can be the headcount for the HR. It can be sales numbers for the finance. So we are predicting or estimating a future trend or an event. And I have a small definition from the Wikipedia. So forecasting is a process of making the predictions of the future based on the past and present data, and most commonly by the analysis of trends. And a commonplace example might be estimation of some variables. And we know that there are two kind of variables in that, dependent and independent, and we get prediction in a small similar in general terms. So this is a definition from a Wikipedia. uh, and guess what? In the traditional time, we used to have a forecasting just like having a stone. And for the weather forecast, if the stone is wet, it's predict to be a rainy day. Or if the stone is gone, so there is a tornado. So that's an initial a kind of meme from my side that this is the traditional way of forecast. But we are in 2020, and we know that we are in era of artificial intelligence and machine learning all about, and the business intelligence is booming. And Excel, for the last more than 35 years, Excel application is being there. And a lot of chartered accountants, cost management accountants, they are preparing their reports and models and doing forecasting and budgeting in Microsoft Excel. So Excel is going nowhere, and this webinar is focused more about rather than Stone Age to the latest Microsoft Excel age. So let's get to the industry examples first. The first example from the pharmaceutical company. uh, if any of the attendees or a later viewer on a YouTube video for this webinar, if you are watching this, so might be few of you are might be in a pharmaceutical company, and you know that in this kind of an organization we have demand and supply hub, where we need to do the forecasting for the inventory. Um, Different types of parameters can be defined, like market wise, country wise, city wise, clusters wise. uh, what are their products, how much the demand is coming from the consumer side, and what are how to predict the primary sales and secondary sales, how to do the seasonal sales. So for all these kind of business paradigms, we need forecasting feature to be implemented in our models. um, it's not every time we do a very complex kind of forecasting. We can take assumptions from the external sources, from the external markets, and we can apply those percentages in our models for forecasting for the next 5 to 10 years in our models. The next example from the FMCG's companies, definitely every boss, every organization wants to like more profits, and for doing that, forecasting is one of the technique from which the salespersons or the any other department can do that, where in next 5 years their business will be going, to minimize the risk basically, and to maximize the profit, and to explore the new domains of the business. So FMCG is one of the domain from where the forecasting is very useful, and it's very important. The next example is from the banking sector. As previously, I started my career as a banker, as a business analyst. So I was looking for the all the banks, all the different branches data, and we have the management information system (MIS). And at the end of every year, from October to December, we used to create budgets, and after the month of June, we used to create 6 by 6 forecast for the branches, for the businesses. Because as you know that in banking sector especially, uh, banks, what banks do, they take they take the money from the people, they call deposits, and they lend further as an advances, and the difference is net interest income. So banks are more interested to increase the net interest income, and also they want to see uh, the variables, the market variables, like where they will invest to meet the net interest income, and to get back the giving the back interest on the deposits as well. So banking sector is one of the sector which I have worked personally for the last 5 years, back in 2008 till 2012. Then I moved towards the teaching and training side. So banking sector is one of the sector where we need forecasting very much. And it's not always the financial forecasting we do. It can be a non-financial as well. HR department every year they want to do the forecasting for the next year headcounts and how they will utilize them. So this is one of the most important area. A lot of people mix the concepts of budgeting and forecasting every time, but budgeting and forecasting they are two different activities. So budgeting normally uh, held at the start of every year, but forecasting generally held at the middle of the year, where the organization which is not meeting the budget requirements according to the actual numbers, they move towards the forecasting where they put a lot of assumptions, in-depth analysis, so that they can come up with a decision making that how they generate more profits or do exposure for their businesses.
That's a good
So
definition. I'm glad you defined that. It's
yeah.
important to distinguish between, yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Yeah, that's very important that we need to distinguish between the budgeting and forecasting. I hope the poll has been showed to the participant. Yes. All
Okay,
right. So
now
now
it's,
we have a poll.
yeah,
So how many forecasting functions available in Microsoft Excel? So you have four options: 4, 6, 2, and 7. And let's see that how many of you can give the right answer if you have previously used forecasting functions. All right. So moving ahead, in the meantime, we have the results from the poll.
yeah,
So we
just give
have,
it another minute. We've probably got
yeah,
70% of people who have voted. So are you
sure.
going to tell us, are you going to give us the answers when we're done? Okay, all right. I'm going to end the poll now and then I'll show you what the answers were. Most people said there was 4. Were they right?
So the correct answer is answer B, 6, 6.
Almost.
Yeah, 31% of the people has got the right answer. All right, so we will be discussing these forecasting functions, and let's get started. We have two functions and both are similar. The first function is the forecast function, which is available in the previous versions of Microsoft Excel. Either you are using Excel 2013 or the earlier versions. And forecast.linear gives you the same result, same output. And this is available with the family of Excel 2016 and above versions. And it does the linear forecasting. So I hope the word linear, most of the participants would understand what is linear. So they basically, the forecast function and forecast.linear does the same, gives the same output. So you can consider this as a two separate functions, one for the previous versions, one for the newer versions. Then we have the forecast.ets exponential smoothing method, where we have a seasonal kind of sales going on, and when we want to predict on those past trends, so we have to apply forecast.ets, and it contains an algorithm on the back end as well. So then we have the forecast.ets seasonality. Sometimes we have a repetitive pattern in the data sets, like yearly, quarterly, monthly, and the numbers are up and down. So seasonality is one of the most important area. Most of the times Excel do it automatically. If you don't define the criteria within the function, Excel by default automatically picks the pattern of the seasonality for the forecast. Then we have forecast.ets.confid, which returns the confidence interval. So I hope that most of the participants know about what is confidence interval, right? Okay. And in your previous school life or university life, you have been gone through the statistics as a subject, where you have always taken 95% of the confidence interval, right? And but we can take 90%, 99%. It's depend on the situation, right? Then we have forecast.ets.stats, which gives you alpha, beta, gamma. Again, this is more advanced towards the ones who have the subject matter knowledge of these statistics. So as I told you that forecast and forecast.linear gives you the prediction of the future value based on the linear trend. Okay, and we have also exponential triple smoothing functions as well for the forecasting for the seasonality. So this was the answer of the poll. So we have the 6 different uh, Excel forecasting functions. The 2 are forecast and then linear. And then we have 4 with the ATS names. So total of 6 functions. All right. So let's get into the demonstration part. And I know that most of the attendees are now waiting for to see the Microsoft Excel screen, their favorite part. So without further any wasting time, I would like to uh, come in the Excel environment. And now I hope that you can see my Excel screen. So it's visible, Daniel?
Yes, we can see your Excel. But firstly, I have to ask about these add-ins that you've got at the top here before. I know
Yeah.
that lots of people are going to ask about those, so I thought I'd get in first. What's this fuzzy lookup you've got there?
All right, fuzzy lookup. Great. You have a very sharp observation. So fuzzy lookup is all about that. It actually look up for the approximate textual values.
Cool.
So generally when you use VLOOKUP and we want to search a number as a lookup value and which is not exactly available in the column 1 of the data set, we use true or 1 at the end of that function, which gives the approximate match on the values. But we can't do the approximate match on textual values, text values. So fuzzy lookup can give us the solution for that as well. For example, if I get a value in my original data set, I have got name Rahim and sales, for example, 100. And now in the lookup area, I got a name which has a different spelling, which is RAHEEM. So now fuzzy lookup can do the approximate match and it will gives us output of 100 here. So this is add-in available free of cost. If the attendees don't know, let me show you a screen here.
Maybe you can give us a link to it, and I can send it in the email.
Yeah, sure. It's
Yeah,
very
sorry,
easy. You can just
I didn't mean to distract you from what you were.
yeah,
Cool.
sure,
Yeah,
sure. So I hope now this is one of the additional learning part for all the attendees today here.
that's great.
So fuzzy lookup concluding is does the approximate match on the text values and gives you an output based on the probability you set in this add-in. Okay, so we will discuss in F and F session, F2F session as well. All right, and one more thing is that might be you ask about that as well. Inquire add-in. I have that inquire add-in. So those of you who are the auditors, who are the accountant and auditors, this add-in is very useful for the auditors to audit the work spreadsheets from different scenarios.
Cool.
So I hope that the attendees after the webinar would be able to have these 2 add-ins very useful for their reports. All right, so let's move on to the forecasting side. Yes. So Daniel, any questions from the participant? If you want, what do you like to add?
No, but Christian Martinez has just shared the fuzzy lookup download link. So thank you for that, Christian. Nothing yet. So please jump in
Okay,
with any questions.
thank you. All right, so let's discuss about the first forecasting function here. So you on my spreadsheet, you can see uh, there are 2 examples. The first one has the 2 columns, years, and then we have some sales, rupees and billions. And we want to predict, forecast the next 3-year sales. So let's get started with the forecast function. So I will write equals to forecast. Now either you can use forecast or you can use forecast.linear, as I told you, which is almost same. So I will use forecast.linear, bracket open. The first function argument is x. X means the current year which you want to predict for that value. So in our case, this is 2020, which is in A13. The known wise is the past data of sales in this example. Okay, known wise because you know the values of the past sales years. So from B3 to B12, and make sure you make this absolute by pressing F4 key. Then you have the third function argument, which is known X. Known X means the past year's information, which is from 2010 till 2019, which is from A3 to A12. And make sure that you also make this range as an absolute. So I will close the bracket and I will just copy down this function to the next 2 cells. So we got on linear based. forecast for the next 3 years, which is 2020, 21, and 22. And if we go for the graphical representation of this data set, what we can do is I will select the entire data set, click on Insert tab, and I will click on the line chart. So I don't need the years within my chart. And as now you can see that the actual sales are has been shown, the past sales has been shown in orange color, and the next future sales has been shown in gray color. But there is no connectivity between these two. So what we can do is we can repeat the last year number to it so that the line can be joined, and now we can know that how next 3 years where our sales will be going as a linear trend by the help of forecasting function in Excel. All right, so the next second example is we have again number of years in our data set and the sales again in the data set, and we want to predict the sales for the 2025. Now we will not be applying the function here. We will be doing with the help of trend line within the Excel chart. So first I will select two columns, which are the year and sales. Clicking on the insert tab, click on the line chart from the charts group and delete the unnecessary access here. Now you have the sales for the every year. If you want to correct the horizontal axis, that's very easy. Just right click on it. From this contextual menu, you will find an option called select data. And on the right side, there is a field called horizontal category access labels. Click on added button and just select the years range. Now, what we are required to do is we need to predict or forecast the number for the 2025, right? So we will add a trend line to it. How we can do it? I will just right click on this line, and here is an option called add trend line, right? So after doing that, on the right side, you will see by default, the trend line option has been select linear. Now it's also depend that in which kind of industry you are working. Um, Most of the times people select the linear trend, or but you can go for the other trend lines as well. You can go for polynomial, you can go for the power, you can go for the moving averages. For example, if I have IT based company, just like a Facebook, so the growth of Facebook is always more than a linear, so it's can be a power trend line or the exponential trend line as well. So it's depend on the organization to organization. So by default, we have selected linear, and how many time periods we need to move it. So we can see in our data set, we are on 2019, which has 24 billion sales, and we want to come to the 2025. We need to proceed 6 steps ahead. So I have put 6 in the forward field, and I will press enter key. So you can see a trend line which is going as if we can compare it on the vertical axis, it's more than 40. I think it's 41 something. And you can also drive this number with the help of forecasting function, which I just told you earlier. That is forecast dot linear. So X known Y's are the sales value, non X are the number of past years. And yes, you can see that 41.61 is the answer, which same depicts in the visualization as a trend line in this chart. So this is how you can predict the numbers based on linear. Then you have, again, one more very interesting example. Sometimes we have an organization, an industry-based practice that, for example, uh, t-shirts are mostly sales in summers rather than winters, and sweaters are mostly sales in winters rather than summers. So we have seasonal industries also there, and their sales for the each quarter definitely different. Sometimes it goes on a higher side, sometimes it goes on a lower side. So if we see the visualization of this particular available numbers, so I will go to insert tab again and I will draw a line chart for that. Now you can see there is a seasonal growth in each of the quarters from high to low and then again high to low. Now we need a forecasting function which basically adjust the exponential smoothing in this kind of situation. So here I will be using equals to forecast.ets, and on the back end there is an algorithm, and this basically does the exponential smoothing method. So let me just quickly apply. equals to forecast.ats, the target date. The target date will be the current time period. In my case, this is the 13. Now here you can have a different kind of time periods. You can have a year, you can have a quarter, or a series of numbers. So here we have a target date, which is 13 in A15. Values, the past values which are of sales, and then the timeline, which is the past time period from A3 to A14. And I will just skipping for the temporarily these optional function arguments, and make sure that you absolute the name ranges, these cells basically. Otherwise, your answers will not come in a correct way. So after getting the numbers, forecasted numbers, okay, if I put these numbers into the graphical representation as a line chart, so what I can do, selecting a data, quickly going to the insert tab, click on the line chart. Now here, as you can see that the gray area is the for the next quarter forecasting based on the linear, but it's exponential smoothing technique. Okay, so sometimes we have different uh, settings about the industries and their practices. So we need to apply the relevant functions. But as I told you, most of the times we need to use the linear rather than the smooth exponential smoothing. One of the very interesting built-in feature available in the latest versions of Microsoft Excel is the forecast sheet. And this gives you an extra advantage for forecasting the numbers. So we have four different kind of numbers. Okay, you can make or apply on your data set as well. It works similar, same here, which I'm telling you. So let's have two examples from these four data sets. For example, we have a deposits data and we have a monthly deposits numbers. We need to predict the next 3 months deposits. And this time we will be using confidence interval as well, that how much confident we are getting the deposits in the next 3 months or so. So I will just select this entire data set and I will go to data tab, and here you will find a forecast sheet option. So I will click on forecast sheet option, and very quickly you can see here in the blue line depicts the deposits past numbers, the historical numbers, and the orange line
Woohoo!
forecast
That's great.
deposits the next numbers. And this is very cool feature available in Excel.
Very
And as you
cool.
can see, the forecast ends at 12. You can increase the number as well if you want, the number of time periods. You can also set confidence interval to any percentage you like. And as I told you that as a subject matter expert and from the statistics background, you need to have these concepts that what they can make a difference. Because if you don't have an idea and you just getting a random number, any number to it, believe it, your business goes wrong. So you need a technical knowledge about the statistics, all these terms, and then you can apply within the Excel. As I told you that seasonality can be detected automatically, so we don't need to worry about that. If you want further advanced statistics uh, or forecasting, you can just check mark this option. The timeline range and the values range are similar to the ranges just we have selected on from our data. So these are the simple ranges selected. Fill missing points using. Sometimes what we have the missing data available as well in the data set. For example, in Pakistan, stock exchanges are closed on Saturdays and Sundays, so we don't have a share price of that, and we need to predict that as well. So using the interpolation method, Microsoft Excel uses the weighted average, and they fill the points. Or you can, if you don't want to fill the points with an average, so you can just put the zero within the data set as well. So it's all depends. But uh, remember that you should not be creating the outliers for yourself. So it's better
Yeah,
to go with the average.
sorry,
Yeah.
Rahim, there was actually a question from Henry, where he actually asked, is it possible to give different weightings for different periods of time? Is that possible?
Uh, Basically, this feature is applied on one data set at one time.
Mm,
So if you have, what you can do is, this is something interesting. So for that, I might be using the solver
mm.
where I can add different situations to that, and I will be using the logics. So I can create a logics in solver, and for the multiple situations, yes, we can do within the solver. But for this feature specifically, this can be applied on one data set at one time.
Thank you.
Okay. And the last option, which is called aggregate duplicate using average. So there are different kind of calculations available. You can change it to average from sum or median, max, min, or count. So by default, it's average. This means that if you have a data set and any kind of time is repeating or any date is repeating twice or multiple times, so the Excel will calculate the average for you so that it can be on a median point. And when I click on create button, so very quickly, Excel will create a new sheet for us, and you can see that it will give three new columns: forecast, lower confidence bound, and upper confidence bound. And then, as I told you, that we have alpha, beta, gamma numbers here and other numbers here, which are all for the expert subject matters. But for now, you can see that very easily you can predict the numbers by using these kind of features available in Microsoft Excel. And with the help of this 95% confidence interval, we can predict that, for example, in the 10th quarter, we are assuming that the lower deposits will be 16,000 and the upper side will be 46,000. Somewhere in between, we can get 31,000 of deposits in the 10th month, okay, which is the October. So this gives an extra advantage and confidence in order to create our financial models and to make the strategies for the next year. But I know that there will be a debate at the end of the webinar that we must use the BI tools or the programming languages. But yes, for this webinar, we are trying to show you the demonstration mostly within the Excel. Uh, okay, so this was,
Absolutely, there is a lot of other software that will do this for you, but we're just talking about Excel today.
yes, exactly. So this was about the forecasting side. And if you want to have, let me just share the screen here. All right. So uh, that was about the forecasting, how we can do forecast, apply the forecast functions and forecasting sheet. So if you want to have a more reading on forecasting, you can go to these links. And these are very in-depth and detailed articles regarding different kind of forecasting we can do in Excel, kind of sales forecasting, for kind of demand forecasting, okay, for different organizations, forecasting improvement, how we can make better costing by doing the forecasting. Machine learning is not a part for today's webinar as well, so for that, but you can anytime read it, that what kind of new trends are coming up in the multinational companies as well.
Yeah,
But
we've got
as
a lot
far
of
as, but as
questions
far,
about
yeah,
getting started and about beta and gamma and all of that, but we're not going to go into that
yeah,
today, but there's lots of reading that you can do on that.
yes. And as especially seeing in the industry, either it's an Asian or the Western side, we know that we can't deny that most of the accountants, either they are chartered accountants or cost management accountants, they initially and primarily build financial models in Excel, and throughout their day, even the auditors, they build the models in Microsoft Excel. So Excel is going nowhere. It's the base area, base ground, and Excel is improving. And in every next 3 years, we have a different version and advanced version of Excel coming from the Microsoft. So they are adding features available for the easiness for the users as well. Now, the next part of this webinar uh, is the regression, and is one of the very interesting area for my side as well. So if any of one of you don't know what is regression is, let me just have a quick definition for it. So regression takes a group of random variables through to be predicting y and tries to find a mathematical relationship between them. This relationship is typically in the form of a straight line, linear regression, as you can see in the picture on the right side. So we will be creating a linear regression in Microsoft Excel. We are not going into very much detail or advanced part, but initially how we can do regression, a linear regression in Excel. So there are two kind of variables in the regression we take: dependent and independent. And independent variable can be single or can be multiple, depend on the situation. And we have two examples in our data set today here. So I will tell you that when we have a multiple independent variable, what we can do. So first, let us understand what is regression analysis. Uh, Before jumping to the Excel, it's very important that what is regression analysis. Suppose your managers come to you and he tells you that I predict the annual sales for us. So he give you a task to predict the annual sales. Now that's the primary area. You need to increase the sales because that's when you increase the sales, the revenue increases and the gross profits and net profits. And definitely we need to have take a lot of factors, assumptions, or the drivers we can say in the financial modeling terms. So we can have a lot of drivers into that for predicting these sales. So this means that sales is the dependent variable and factors affecting the sales are the independent variables. And there can be more than one variable as well. So in simple words, regression analysis is used to model the relationship between a dependent variable and one or more independent variable. And we will look to different situations that how we can do in Excel. Um, okay, now this is something interesting. I would like to ask a question. There are a lot of knives you can see on your screen, right? So if I say that if you want to cut a cake from a knife, so which knife you will select? So there are a lot of knives, and you want to cut a cake from that knife. So primarily you can take any random knife instead of one, exception of one. The cake can be cut, but that would be a relevant knife to cut the cake because sometimes what we do for the simple problems we create complex solutions and a long solutions. So as in general terms, with respect to Excel and data science, we have a lot of regression types available. But it's very important that the question comes in your mind that which kind of regression is important and suitable for my business. So primarily, most of the business use linear regression, but compared to the data science, what we are into it in 2020, we need to see that which kind of regression can give us the most efficient answer. But first we should have a knowledge for that as well. So there are 16 different kind of regressions available, and I know that within 1 hour it's impossible to cover all the regression types. So that's why um, today's target is to cover the linear regression. And I hope you have understand the example of from these knives examples that cut cake can be cut from any knife, but we don't want to pick the complex solution for the easy problem. For the easy problem, we need to go for the easy solution, best possible solutions. And one thing which I remember when I used to create financial models, still I create financial models. So there is a rule of thumb. So there is a rule of thumb says that uh, in the financial models, if the other user is not able to understand your formula within 90 seconds, you have created a complex solution to it. So
Very
within 90
true.
seconds, within 120 seconds, your formula should be yes. So your formula should be able to that other user should understand. So that's the rule of thumb of it, and that goes with the regression as well. So there is linear regression, there is non-linear regression, and there are many assumptions when we say we are applying linear regression. Uh, there are a lot of assumptions to it that we are not taking any outliers, we are not underfitting and overfitting the straight line. Okay, so there are a lot of assumptions comes to it. And again there is one more meme as linear regression is on top as a small child, and then it's decision tree and neural network. So I know that we are in that digital era where everyone is excited about the machine learning and that kind of stuff where they want to utilize programming and neural networks at very start. But yes, linear regression is a area where you can start with. The mathematics and statistics is the domain in which you need to have very strong in order to get through to the advanced side. All right, so let's come to the demonstration part for this linear regression in Microsoft Excel. So let me just change the Excel screen. So I hope the regression screen is visible. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Yes. All right. So I will cover 2 to 3 examples here, and I think that by the time ends, um, we will have some questions answers as well. So how many minutes are left, Daniel, for my webinar?
Yeah, we have about 15 minutes left.
Okay. Thanks. All right. So the first example for the linear regression is and I want the attendees who are watching this webinar, I want their output in the chat window as well. So first example is that when there is no salesperson, there is no sales. When there is one salesperson, the sales increase by 10. When there are two salesperson, now every time we are increasing a salesperson by one, and every time the sales are increasing by the difference of 10. So now, for example, if I write 11 here, so what would be my next sales? Yes, any guesses? So what would be my next sales if we have 11 salesperson in the organization? So I hope most of you have given an answer of 110, right, Daniel? Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's right. We have lots of 110 answers coming in.
Yes, yes.
Glad to
Now
know.
this is because our mind can easily calculating the numbers because we see a same pattern for these numbers. Whenever the one salesperson in increasing, the difference of 10 has been increased. So this is very easy calculation and we can do with our brains. But let's come to the next example. Now here, when we have no salesperson, no sales. When we have one salesperson, we have 25 sales. By increasing this number of salesperson, our sales is increasing, but not with a constant difference, but not with the same difference. Now the difference is variable. And also, when we are increasing the number of salesperson from 9 to 10, our sales has been declined from 105 to 100. So human brains are not made for these kind of calculation. Still, it's simple, but we need to think a lot until unless we have some supernatural powers. So we can predict the next number, but now we can understand that machines can do the calculations for us. We can't predict the number. So if I ask for 11 salesperson within the organization, what could be the next number? So if any one of you can give your response in the chat window.
That's a little more difficult.
Yeah.
92, says Kim.
Okay.
108, says Paul. 90,
92,
says Rahul.
108.
We've got all different answers.
All right. So we have multiple answers here. So first we will see that how to create a picture, a visual picture of linear regression in Excel. So we have a data, we have two columns, salesperson and sales, and quickly we will go to the insert tab and we will click on this scatter chart. And as you can see that the dots are creating a straight line because with the same difference, they are constantly increasing. And for adding a trend line, or you can say a line which will depict the linear regression. So what we can do is the chart as an object, you will find three options here, three small buttons here on the right side. You have to click on plus sign. Then from this chart elements, you have to go to the last option, which is called trend line. Then I will click on this small arrow, going to more options. And here you have a trend line, which is the linear. And I will check mark on two of the options, which are display equation on chart and display R squared value on the chart. And I hope that those of you who have been studying statistics for a long time or also practicing practically, so they know that what does these means. So R square is equals to 1 means that the above equation is gives you the 100% of the accuracy of your answer, and it can be less than 1 as well, and it depends on the situation. So y is the dependent variable and x is the independent variable. So y is the sales and X is the salesperson in this scenario, in this current scenario, right? And similarly, if we check the correct answer for the second situation, and we have the multiple answers from the audience as well. So let's see what is the correct answer. So I will go to Insert tab. I will insert a scatter chart, and for adding a trend line, more options, and I will enable two options: display equation on chart and display R squared value on chart. So this means that if I put a value into the X, that give me an answer, and that answer would be 97% correct, 97% accurate. So let's say if I add the 11th person, what would be the sales? So here we have 9.7857 multiply by 11th, because we are adding one more salesperson. So there are total 11 salesperson, which gives us 107.64, and adding a constant value to it. So the constant value is 9.3871. So the new number is 117.03. So this is the next predicted value by using this linear regression equation. And we can also cross verify with the help of forecast.linear function as well. So if I apply forecast.linear, so here we have known x, the values of known y's, which are the sales past numbers and the salesperson numbers. So also it gives me 117.03. So it's a linear regression, and we learn that how to apply this equation on a real-time basis. Now, one last example. And in this example, we have multiple independent variables, uh, okay, and one dependent variable. So for these kind of situations where we have multiple independent variables, we have to use the regression, which is the built-in in Microsoft Excel. So if we go to the data tab, on the right side of this ribbon, you can see a group of analyze, and here you will find data analysis option available. So, but you need to enable that. This is not by default. You will see every time in Microsoft Excel. So for enabling that, for those of you who don't know how to enable this feature, what you can do is click on File on top left side. On this backstage view, you will find options on the bottom left. Click on the options, then Excel options window will appear here, and from there here you will click on add-ins, and after clicking on add-ins, just waiting for a few more minutes, just to Excel respond. Yes, okay. So by clicking on add-ins, uh, on the bottom, you will see a manage and a drop down menu. Select the Excel add-ins and click on go button. And here you need to enable or check mark on analysis toolpack. So when you check mark on analysis toolpack and press OK and you restart Microsoft Excel, you will find data analysis feature available. So when you have got that, click on data analysis. On from this list, you will find a lot of statistics built-in features available. Very simple. So you will select regression here, press OK, and from here you have to select the input range for the dependent variable, which is y, the independent variable for x, and then selecting the default options which you like to have in your result sheet. So first I will select the dependent variable range, which is the current price in column E, E1 to E500. And then in input X range, I have selected 4 columns, which are a, B, C, D, A1 to D500. And I will check mark on labels, because we know that in our data set, the first heading, the first row contains the labels. So we need to check mark on labels. If you want to put constant at 0, you can. But as I told you, you must be subject matter for statistics. If you uncheck it, the results will be different. If you check it, the results will be different. It's depend if you want to take constant 0 or not. Then you can set confidence level to 95% or 97% or 99% as per your choice. When I press OK, now you can see Excel has created a different spreadsheet for you, a separate sheet for you where you will find a lot of statical features. I think I just need a 2 minutes for the break here. We have a namaz here, azan here.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right. Thank you so much for the 2 minutes of silence. All right. So after clicking on OK button, we have got a separate sheet where we have different statical numbers here. And as I said earlier in this webinar, that if you have conceptually very strong in the statistics, you might get what every number is speaking to you. So it, for the novice user, it's just a 0.0057, but for a business user, this numbers is speaking to you that what kind of independent variable result would be. So for this specific for this webinar, let me tell you that after creating a regression result here, what we are more important to focus on the r square value, which is 0.99. So this means that all those independent variable values, if I will create an equation which is called y is equals to mx plus c. So when I put all these four independent variables values to a new value, and with a constant value if it has, so that equation answer will be 99.6% accurate. And if you have studied about ANOVA has a different concept, definitely. So it's all about the statistics, that how you interpret the results based on the data you have collected for the business. Okay. So this was about the regression. Let me just change the screen. Um, all right. So I usually tell about the one of the very good concept about the exponential growth, because we are in the an era of intelligence, and a lot of people now shifting towards the AI and BI domains. So exponential growth is where human brains does not able to calculate much faster and quicker, and with the accuracy as well. So machines are the ones in which we can give the data to the machines, and we can have a different type of data sets, and we can apply the machine learning or any kind of algorithm on the back end. So we can do the exponential analysis as well. And there is a small little concept of folding a paper 50 times and you can get to the moon. So you don't need any SpaceX or NASA to be contact. You just need to fold the paper and you will get to the moon. So it's a concept of exponential growth, and you can see the calculation later on the Google as well. I will recommend you a YouTube video for that, which will uh, build the concept of the technologies we are working with. And it's not just about the Excel, it's about the all the applications which are creating an ecosystem together. So as a professionals, either you are a financial modeler, or either you are just doing the visualizations or creating dashboards in Excel, the ecosystem is now available for you, because Excel is also comes with the business intelligence as well. And we have a lot of third party tools available for financial modeling as well. One of them is Modano, which I used in the last year. So the community is creating a lot of beneficial add-ins for us as well, with respect to these kind of features. And as we can see that we have a different kind of forecast, and the toughest forecast, just like stock exchanges, weather forecasting, economic forecasting. These are one of the difficult forecasting, which I believe that for these kind of forecasting, then you can shift towards the machine learning sites or deep learning side. But for most of the times, in every organization, the finance departments is very interested to use Microsoft Excel, either for the predictive analytics, either for MIS reports, either for the financial models specifically. So thank you so much. This is all about from my side for today's webinar. I welcome your questions if you have any, and this is over to you, Daniel.